Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, January. Can you believe it's the 22nd of January already?
No.
And we're a group of high energy misfits that gather together. So anybody that watches these, joins us live or watches the recordings, it's a group of individuals who have fallen together and continue to have just the most amazing conversations of awareness and awakening that I've ever been a part of. And today is going to be one of in a lot of stuff I was doing this week, and I'm constantly in this. Is anybody familiar with the TV app, the TV show or channel, I should say, Gaia? It's pretty amazing. So I think it's GAIA. And it's a lot of stuff about energy and spirituality. And there's some stuff on there that's just, now for me to say it, I think it's way off the reservation, but it's just a whole channel of, I want to say goodness, but it's a lot about the mind, and it's a lot about spiritual awakening. So just take a peek at it. It's for whatever it is. I have it on Amazon Prime. But there's a lot of stuff. There's things that are like something was on with Deepak Chopra. And one of the things that came to me this weekend was this conversation about the topic that I'm going to share about this morning. And it was quite interesting the way it resonated with me. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Share screen, share. So can you all see that shadow? Okay. Self has always doubted our wonder. And one of the lines that maybe it was a 14-day meditation that Michelle has with Deepak. But it was, when does a shadow exist? When can a shadow exist? If we're in the darkness and we're hidden, if I turned off all of the lights in this room, could I have a shadow? The shadow only exists when we step into the light. So every day we are stepping into the light. We're stepping into this unknown. We're stepping into, I need to be better at my job. I need to be better at my career, my side hustle, my network marketing business, my consulting, my presence on social media. We're constantly stepping into the light. And the challenge is that sometimes we're afraid of our own shadow. How many of you remember watching your child or your grandchildren the first time they saw their shadow try to run away from it? How many of us are trying to run away from our shadow? So here's the thing that I keep talking about. And that stage where you see all of the people looking down at the baseball field, every participant, every audience member, every person sitting in that stadium are our subconscious thoughts. Every one of them is a subconscious thought that sits there, resides there, and hangs out there. The stool with the microphone is the one that just showed up now. The one of you that is sitting here now is the one sitting in that stool. Now, as we get closer towards the end or towards the 7 o'clock hour, Danya has somebody that shows up on that stool that says, I got to get my ass to work. Right? I show up at 7:28, 7:29. I'm thinking, okay, we've been an hour. The part of me that shows up on the stool is, okay, when do we wrap this? Somebody is always taking that conscious stage. But in order for them to take that conscious stage, they need to step out of the shadow. So the question then becomes, what do we shadow? How many colors of our life can we see in the dark? There's only one color in the dark. What is it right now? What are you striving for? What did you write down on your goals this morning that is going to require you to step into the light? When you have conversations, who is speaking? How many times right now? So I learned this a long time ago, just when I was being translated in Spanish. So when I went down to Puerto Rico and lived there for 7 years and I was being translated, I can tell you that when I said my part of the presentation, and Agata, my operations manager, she would translate, I was no longer part of that conversation. I was having another conversation in my head about him, about what he was wearing, blah, blah, blah. So when you're having a conversation, who's speaking? What part of you is having a dialogue, an ongoing fast dialogue in your head? Oh my God, what are you doing here? You're not good enough. You're not strong enough. Who do you think you are? Where they're speaking from the shadows. They're not in the conscious light, right? They're speaking from the shadows. When you're sitting with yourself, can you be with yourself? How many of us are like, oh, every time I try to meditate, my mind goes nuts. That's all the folks from the shadow. What happens if you put light on your life? What shadows would start to appear? Sometimes we step out into our own world. We step out into the light. How many of us have heard the phrase, we put ourselves out there? And when we put ourselves out there, what happens? We're seen. What part of us is seen? Are people only looking at our shadow? What's the cost to look at your shadows? What would it cost you emotionally, physically, mentally, monetarily to look at your shadows? What's it cost to hide your shadows? I think part of this conversation of me doing this is like yesterday. It would have been easy to come up with 1,001 things of why I didn't make it on the call yesterday. Nope, just blew it. Just slept right through it. And that was me stepping out into the light of the shadow because I screwed up. I don't normally do that. So it was Abby Normal. Who likes Young Frankenstein, right? What kind of brain did you make me put in that thing? Abby Normal. I was abnormal yesterday. I was okay. So being aware of your light and being aware of where it's at. How much time do you spend on the edge of light? That one's pretty cool. How many of us are in the light, but there's no shadow? What would that mean? How many of us have heard the expression, your back's up against the wall? If your back's up against the wall, can anyone see your shadow? When you are backed up against the wall, how do you feel? What would happen if you stepped away from the wall? Would you fall over? Are there people there to help you? What if your shadow disappeared? How would your shadow disappear? Right? I do studio stuff and I'm constantly adjusting lights so that you don't see the what? The shadows. So sometimes we have to be backlit. Who's got your back? How many times have we heard that? All of this stuff is just flowing to me right now. I don't know if it makes sense, but there's a part of my brain that goes, oh, that connects to this. That's pretty cool. What would you need to do to take that next step away from the wall? What would you say to your shadow? Right? Remember we were kidding around earlier, just I remember when Mason saw his shadow, man, he tried to run from it. Right? They're dodging and they're doing everything like Maxwell Smarts on Get Smart or Austin Powers, right? And they're doing all that dance, trying to run from, and you can't. Unless what? Unless you get more light. Becoming aware of where you are standing. Are you in the dark looking out? How many of us have ever been in that situation? A lot of times we're in that situation when we want to, I know I am when I want to what? When I want to scare Mason. He can't see me, but I can see him. I can see him just clear as day. And he'll walk by the room and he'll run by the room, right? Because he knows I'm in there. What are you looking out on right now? What are you looking out? Where are you looking out from? Become immersed in light. What would you see if you look back? What would you see if you look back into the dark? Right? I know sometimes I'll go outside in the middle of the night and I'll just sit on the back porch. How many of us believe that sound gets louder in the middle of the night? Or how many of us have ever tried to open up the refrigerator at 2 o'clock in the morning and not wake anybody up? Oh my God, this thing makes so much damn noise. It's because it's the only thing you can focus on, is whatever comes out of the darkness. What is the light that you have that would make your darkness disappear? What's that one candle you could light? In the darkest of dark rooms, one candle could make a difference, couldn't it? There's a candle that you have that you've lit before. There's a candle that you know exactly where to light. There's a candle that you have that you believe if you light, somebody will blow it out, or somebody will tell you, what are you doing with that light? Right? Like you're trying to rob everything. Turn that light off. What are the 10 things you're keeping from the light? Mine was, up until yesterday, is that sometimes I get tired. But yesterday it showed up, smack dab and full color. My spelling, I don't know that I keep that in the dark, but it's still something that kind of challenges me. I'll go back, and I've gotten better at reading posts, because I'll go back and read them going, there's no way I typed that. My shadow person did, somebody did. So here's the question. How can light happen? Right, the 4 stages: fear, sadness, excited, and normal. When you step out into the light, what's the fear? What's that fear of being exposed, right? I posted in the comments I put on Facebook this morning, bring your self screen. I thought that was pretty cool. Now that's just me being silly. But what is your self screen that you'll put on when you step into the light? What is that protection? What is that awareness, that acceptance that you have of stepping into the light? Is it easier? How many of us like to go to the beach by ourselves? How many of us would have more fun if we went with friends? If you step into the light, or you go to the party with a friend, that's what we're all here for. There are people who are light steppers that will go out in the light with you. And then the excited part is now hanging out in the light. Right? And how many of us love, have ever seen that the sky after a thunderstorm, and it has just that orangey glow to it. It's just this, everything looks different. The trees look different, right? That's what, you can only see that in the light. Light takes on so many different forms, so many different colors, so many different shades, depending upon the filter. Dark, I don't care what you look like, what kind of filter you see your life through. In the dark, it's still dark. And then the last part, what will you shed light on today? What will happen if you step into the light? What would happen if you stepped into the light? I mean, really stepped into the light and you got out there. Probably would need to have some of your friends in the audience, right? Probably would be cool to have yourself screened. It's a big topic just to touch on like that. So there you go. What comes up when we talk about stepping into the light?
Well, for me, it kind of brings to mind the awakening experience that I've had over the last 2 or 3 months. And it feels like I've stepped out of the shadows into the light. I feel more myself now because I'm shining attention on the things that I want to be, rather than hiding in fear as I've done for the last 3 years, and just, going through the motions, because that was easier than exposing myself to what I really wanted. And so now I've exposed myself and I'm in the light, and it feels fearful and exciting and fun all at the same time.
So like the law says, if you expose yourself, that's probably a quick 5 to 10 years that you'll be in prison. So how long have we been in prison before we exposed ourselves?
Yeah, exactly.
So for me, this is going to be kind of really interesting. So when you started talking about the shadow, my brain clicked on, but what if the shadow is actually our guardian angel, who's either pushing us towards the light or pulling us towards the light, because wherever the sun is, it's either in front of you sometimes, the shadow, or it's behind you, but it's actually there propelling you or pushing you towards the better things in life, not holding us back in the dark, because where it's dark, there is no shadow, correct? So I would.
And that's, I'm glad you said that, Leslie, because there is no shadow in the darkness. So the only way to have a shadow is to be in the light. So yes, there is something that draws us there, drives us there, pushes us or pulls us. I totally agree with that.
So I think that the shadow is a really, really good thing and nothing to fear.
Yeah, you guys said there's a great, she passed away way too young, but Debbie Ford, if any of you remember Debbie Ford, or if you haven't read her, if this really resonates with you, I would encourage you to get some of her writings. Because she writes exquisitely about shadow and light and what it means. And Leslie, she talks about the fact that you can't step into the light until you've actually embraced the shadow. You're going to always be drawn back until you embrace it, and how the shadow is a part of us. But one of my, and
what was her name again?
Debbie Ford. She's got some, I haven't thought of her in forever, so I thank you for this topic this morning, because she really was one of my absolute favorite writers. But it's like the shadow can't exist without the light. The fact that there's a shadow is in fact a reminder that there is a light, and that we are both. That's the premise of her, is accepting that duality of ourselves. And she even talks about, Sean, the fact that none of us is one person, and when we meet someone, we want them to stay that person, but they're not going to stay that person. And you're not going to stay who you were when you met them. And this whole idea of license to grow and change and evolve. But this is one of my favorite quotes from her, that it says, if you're up to something that's as big as you are, it's going to be scary. If it feels perfectly safe, you are probably underachieving. To leave your mark in the world, you will have to stand someplace you've never been willing to stand before, and you will have to have the courage to aspire to excellence. I have that actually on one of my favorite quote cards from her. But it's interesting, because we get in this comfort zone because we know where our shadow is. We know where our secrets are, right? We know where the shadow is. We know, we embrace the fact that there's light. We embrace the fact that there's shadow, but we don't want to let go. We have to be willing to stand someplace different, right? We have to be willing to move. But yeah, the shadow, I think that's what you said is super important, in that we can't run from the shadow. We have to embrace the shadow and say, is this shadow good? Is this shadow helping? Is this shadow my comfort? Do I need to change where I'm standing? Do I need to change my shadow? And then the other thing that came to mind as I was listening, if you really want to, does anybody watch Lindsey Stirling? Does anybody know Lindsey Stirling? Okay. I'll have to find her videos and post it. But she's a dancer who plays the violin, and she does the most incredible videos. And she has a whole video where she dances with her shadow. It's just really, it's really inspiring. But anyway, she's very cool. I'll find the link to the video.
So Kathy, as you were talking, yes, shadows, Lindsey Stirling. I just see the video there. I'll put that link in there. Where this all came from, because as soon as you said Debbie Ford, it all came back to me, because in Gaia, there was the movie called The Shadow Effect, which is where I got all these notes from, which was run by Debbie Ford. It has Marianne Williamson in there, Deepak Chopra, and all of these people. So I just put the link to I think it's a Spanish subtitled, but it's on YouTube, and that's the whole shadow effect. But you can see it in Gaia as well, but that's the link in YouTube. I'll put it in Daily Awakening as well. Where I got this whole conversation about shadows, and I didn't know she was gone.
Yeah, she passed away. She was only 57 when she passed away. She died of cancer, but yeah, she incredible work that she did.
Yeah, because she was, it was filmed also part of a,
Yeah,
it was
Deepak
part.
Chopra, she was very close to Deepak.
Yes, that makes sense. So how are you all feeling? Where are you feeling this? You know, that's become wildly amazing to have the physiology conversation with people about these things. When we're talking about stepping out into the light, where do you feel that? Because everything has energy, right? Everything has vibration. And when you start to feel that, where is that? A lot of times when I talk to people about stepping out into the light, literally their backs hurt because they are up against the wall. They are walking that precipice between light and dark. Just sit with it for a second and be aware of it, because your greatness, we are all born great, right? We're all born geniuses. And then we take on these shrouds of self-doubt and fitting in, right? From the moment that we go get our mom a weed, not weed, we get a weed, a little from the grass, and we hand it to her, and it's the most precious flower that's ever been given, right? Somebody gives us a flower. And from there on, we have this desire to want to make people around us happy. How many people around you right now could really have less care? I don't want to say could care less, have less care whether you succeed or not, whether you have a good day or a bad day. Why not step into the light, step into your own greatness, be your own amazing soul? What else is showing up?
One way to think about that is if we give any credence to we are what we think, being listening to this discussion makes me aware that we're talking a lot about paying attention to the darkness, to the deficit side. If Nathaniel Brannon was working with us and concerned about our self-esteem, he would switch over to evoking another perspective. And he'd do it by saying things like, having a client repeat this sentence stem, if I were willing to admit how much I secretly like myself, ... suppose other people don't agree. If I were willing to admit how much I secretly like myself, I would be embarrassed. If I were willing to admit how much I secretly like myself, a lot of people would be shocked. I would be scared. My family wouldn't like it. I'd have no excuse for passivity. I could get on with my life. So you can begin to explore the light that's within you by using sentence stems like that. The good thing about pretending to dislike myself is I have an excuse. Or if I had the courage to admit that, whatever my shortcomings, I like myself, I'd be free. So it's a way of really putting the light on your own light. What is it that I secretly admire about myself? You know, that if I could bring that into the light, might be scary.
Has any of us ever had a facial? I know this seems like a weird segue, Bob. But the reason I ask is that it just came to me when you said put the light on our light. I've gone for facials, and this lady who Michelle uses, her name is Anna, she never shuts up. I mean, it's just, she is this constant jabberjaw. But the thing, it wasn't that part that was really important. What do they do when you go for a facial? Do they use a brighter light? Do they use a magnifying glass to look at your pores? Do they look at, and do they just squeeze your whole head in a vise, or do they work on little areas, right? I say all of that to say, when we start to shed the light on our light, we're gonna see some amazing stuff, right? Does the cosmetologist, I don't know what you would call her, the faceologist, does the lady that's the esthetician, does she work on the areas of your face that are okay? Mm-mm. She'll scrub it and she'll put all of the lotion and everything else. But when she goes to work on the affected areas, she works on those areas. Sometimes there's too much and they'll say, come back for another appointment. So I love that sentence. If I were willing to say how much I secretly like myself, all of these are breaking patterns.
Yeah, his point was to focus on what it is about ourselves that scares us, that stops us because of maybe some old rules or beliefs that we picked up from family associations in the society that say we're not supposed to be so brilliant. We're not supposed to be so talented. Who are you to be that good?
I could tell you there's a lot more things I think I'm not as good at than any of you think that I'm not as good at. But yeah, those are the rules the bullshit rules that we carry with us. Addiction to approval. And what they're finding is that this is happening at such a subconscious level. These stories that run, that protect us, and what these questions do, and this, we can't fight the darkness with darkness. We can't, right? So, you know, we have so many expressions, and this is, I know some in Spanish, I know some in Slovenian, different expressions that people have, these things that we pull out for a situation, right? You got to fight fire with fire, whether you're going after a business relationship or this, that, or the other, or actually fighting fire. The key is when we challenge these conversations with these questions. How many of you woke up this morning and said, before you got out of bed, what if I got out of bed on the other side? And I've done that before. Rolled over Michelle and got out of bed on the other side. And she's like, what are you doing? I go, I needed a change. Right? Just little things like that. If you start to question it, because the physiology, the body is running the memories in our cells. How many of us believe that our cells have memory? How many of us believe that water has memory? Right? All of these things that we talk about, that we hear in science, it all corresponds back to us. And that if we do things like our grandparents did, if there's something that we do, an action, a way we look, a way we something, that's because it's in our DNA. Bob said it, if we're going to go down that path of we believe that our thoughts can influence our day, we all agreed that that could happen. Well, then where's the thought residing? Where's that electrical impulse residing? And in order for that impulse to take effect in our body, it's got to send chemicals to our body. And in those chemicals, we start to build up our pattern of our past. What would happen if we started to change that, right? To change a habit can be done like that. The reason it takes 21 days is for our body to adjust. Think about it. I could quit smoking yesterday. Mark Twain said, easiest thing he's ever done. He's done it at least 200 times. We can quit smoking, but then the body goes through that whole thing. We can quit drugs. We can decide we're going to eat better. We can decide we're going to use essential oils to help with our discomfort or this, that, or the other. There's so many people who right now have in their cabinet, in their closet, something that'll help them with their, on their bookshelf, that'll help them with their mind, body, family, spirit, society. And stays on the shelf or in the closet. Why? Because it requires a change in the body. I've got to become somebody different. I've got to step into the light. What light are you looking to step into? I want you to just think about that. What light do you want to step into? Because this doesn't have to be in a verbal sense. If we're all energy and we're all connected, you saying you want to step into the light to become better at, to become more exposed, to become more aware of, we can send you energy to that. Doesn't have to be a verbal request. If you ask for it, it will show up. If you give it space, there will be room. And the darkness isn't always a bad thing. Shadow isn't a bad thing. But we got to step out into the light, like Leslie said, so that we can actually see the damn shadow. What would your shadow say to you? If you stepped out into the light and a new shadow appeared, what would it say to you? Into something that you've been wanting to do, something you've been hoping to go for. You'd be scared as hell, but guess who's there with you? Your guardian angel, your shadow. If we start to ask the questions that we want, what would this light bring me? What would this joy bring me today? How wonderful would I feel? I always have conversations when I'm mentoring people and they're in, say, weight loss companies. First thing I always ask them is, who are the 3 people that are going to be jealous as you get healthy? They're like, what? Yeah, you know, there's 3 or 4 people that would be absolutely, that would go, oh, that's so wonderful for you. And you could just tell they'd be jealous of your success. Doesn't matter whether it's weight loss or speed reading or awareness. That goes back to that addiction. They're hanging out in the dark going, where are you going? You're like, but I'm over here. They can finally see you for the first time when you take your step out into the light. What else? What else is showing up? What comments, conversations?
You know, one of the things as you were just talking, Sean, that came to mind for me is that I think that it's important to acknowledge a couple things here, but one is that there's the light we want to step into, but there's also this idea that it's not as much about stepping into the light as it is embracing that we already have the light and where are we going to shine our light. I was thinking about what you were saying about the facials, and they have, before they can work, they have to shine the light there, right? They don't shine the light on your knee so they can work on your cheek, right? They shine the light where they want to work, where they want to.
And if they did, wouldn't you run out of the room?
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's just like,
yeah,
something about not just stepping into the light, but where are we willing to shine the light? I think that's what was just mulling through my head. You know, it's really easy to just throw it in the closet. This has been, you know, I've been on this kick lately about what's in the drawer. Because I'm so tired of not being able to find things when I want to find them. And so I realized, well, I live alone. If it's not where it's supposed to be, who am I going to blame? The beagle? You know, I mean, so it's like, okay, if you want it to always be in that drawer, then you have to always put it in that drawer. And so I had to open the drawer and look and say, well, what is in the drawer? And when half the stuff in the drawer isn't even stuff I even know what it is anymore, but the stuff that I need isn't there, I have to be willing to shine the light on that drawer and take care of that. But I have to also shine the light on the behavior that let it get that way. Because if I just clean it out and I don't change what caused it, it's just going to keep happening over and over again. But anyway, it's just when you were talking, I was just thinking, is it as much about, for me anyways, about stepping into the light or where I'm willing to shine the light? And in good and constructive ways. I mean, shine the light, like you were saying, shine the light to say, to celebrate, and then shine the light to have more introspection and work on things. But yeah, I think there's duality to everything. There's duality to everything, the shadow and the light. But what is the most profound thing to me about shadow and light is that neither of them exist in darkness. Darkness is the absence of light. There is no shadow in darkness. So the duality of shadow and light is also the expulsion of darkness. And that to me is its power.
And so that means that we need to, again, stay in the light, which is sometimes difficult, right? When depression is going back into somewhere, feeling that we're not good enough is going back into somewhere, going back into the recesses. People ask me all the time, they go, how do you know all these people in the network marketing world? And I said, if you shine the light, so my light, I shine on a lot of people through recognition and accolades and everything else. At some point, somebody's going to go, who the hell is running that light? And that's what I believe has allowed me to acquire a lot of the relationships I have, because it's never been about me. But if you shine the light, somebody eventually is going to be going, who is shining that light? So it's as you become brighter, people want to hang around you because they just love to be in that light. Right? Every one of us, I know if I got the chance to sit, I love sitting with Kyle Wilson, right? I love sitting with you because your light is just so brilliant and so bright. I love, if I had a chance, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Deepak, if he was still here, Wayne Dyer, all of these things that I would love to be around, to hang out with, because they're just, we believe we receive light from them. We receive energy from them. Right? One day we'll see Charlie, right? That'll be an amazing light-filled day.
It's interesting about this shining the light on, because last night I was on a Zoom call with the group led by Paulette Roy, and they kind of put this challenge out there starting in February to do a 90-day blitz, and they want you to sign a contract. Anybody that wants to take part in this, you sign a contract saying that, you know, you're really going to give it for 90 days. And of course, the minute she said that, I thought, oh shit, I'm not signing that damn thing. You know, then I have to be accountable. And then afterwards I thought, no, Em, you want to do this. So why not just put yourself out there and sign the contract and do the work and see what the hell happens in 90 days. And after I decided that I'd let that light shine, I was comfortable with it, but at first it was like, oh, no way, not in your life. And now I thought, no, yeah, it's a great idea. Let's do it. So, but it's about shining the light on my weaknesses. And so like, I've got to become stronger in my weakness, and that's freaking scary, but I'm going to conquer the coward and do it.
Well, the next 90 days are coming, right? Whether you like it or not. So, you know, again, stepping into that new you, it's funny how a signature changes everything, right? The word contract, that vibration, that light that word has. Well, and again, because of your understanding of a contract from a business standpoint, you know that you're committed to that, right? So pretty cool expression of awareness.
That's a situation where you have a choice also to bring one or another or several of your sub-personalities into that context. You know, do you want to be the super adult that's worried about getting into trouble doing one thing or another if you're going to make a wrong mistake? Or could it be that it's valuable to invoke the young child in you, the 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old child who just knows to go for it without any worries? And you have a choice to bring any of those parts of your personality into the context that you're concerned with at any moment. And you know, a child, for example, is a great way to bring your child self, of whatever age, is a great way to bring fun and lightness and energy, as opposed to worry and thought, overthinking, over planning, and just revert to doing the way your younger self used to know how to do before it got talked out of it.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of times that I think my 8-year-old shows up and surprises a lot of people. But then sometimes my 8-year-old shows up and goes, I ain't doing that. Well, cool. Anyone else want to share? So cool. I would encourage you to be aware of what showed up for you. What did you learn? What did you like? Not that any of us taught anything. All we can do is awaken an idea or concept in your own self. And that is what you have to work with, right? Because words don't teach. It's you, the person, that does the teaching to yourself, the awareness to yourself. So what's one thing you learned, one thing you liked from this conversation? And be aware that you always have that choice. If you need help, we're here. This is the community that you can request some help. I know some folks have posted some requests. I need more light. And that's just what we're here for. This is about making a difference in our worlds, and whoever wants to join us joins, and if not, no worries. But there's a greatness that's happening inside of all of us at this moment, and I'm just so proud to be a part of it and to watch it happen. So I wish you all tons of light today. Is that good? Okay, go have some tons of light today. And I'll put the YouTube, and if anybody else, because here the reticular activating system is going to say, you are going to become aware of a lot more light today. So enjoy it, embrace it, and have your self screen ready. I love you all. I'll see you where? At the next event. Bye for now, everybody.